to leave the ark right away. But Noah wanted to wait a bit longer. God has brought us here safely. He will also tell us when we can leave the ship safely. Thus they waited until Noah heard the voice of God, who said, "Now you can leave the ark with your wife, your sons, your daughters-in-law, and all the animals. The earth shall once again bloom with life." Noah opened the gate, and the animals pushed impatiently onto the land, each one as fast as it could. They spread out in all directions in order to look for places where they could live and multiply. Noah built an altar for the Lord and sacrificed one of each of the gregarious animals and of the birds. The whole family kneeled down to pray and thank God for their wonderful rescue. God was pleased with Noah's sacrifice and thought to himself, "Never again will I send a flood like that to destroy humanity. Never again will I curse the earth due to its people. As long as the earth exists, there will be summer and winter, day and night, heat and cold, sowing and harvesting on it." He blessed Noah and his family. "Be fertile, go forth and multiply, and populate the earth. Now I shall form an alliance with you and all living creatures." As a sign of the alliance, God caused a big rainbow to appear in the sky and said, "If I form clouds again above your earth, this sign will be a reminder to me that I have formed an eternal alliance with you, your children, and all living creatures."
The Tower of Babel. Many years had passed since the Great Flood. Mankind had grown again, and everyone understood everyone else, since they all spoke the same language. As yet, they didn't live in houses, but moved about whenever their animals needed new grazing land, taking their property with them from place to place, following the herds. One day, as they were on the move again, the people travelled westwards and came across a great fertile plain. They liked the place so much that they said to one another, "Let's stay here and settle down. We could build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we can see inside." So the people got to work and baked bricks to make them hard, and used bitumen as mortar for the cut bricks, and then began to build the city and the tower. The people talked to each other. "Soon we will make a name for ourselves and become important. Everyone will know us, and we won't need to keep moving from place to place." And they carried on building enthusiastically. God saw what the people were doing, and he came down from heaven to walk around and have a better look at the city and the tower. God said to himself, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then soon nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Nothing will be out of their reach. And in their pride they will start to do evil things. I will confuse their language, so that nobody will be able to understand anyone else, and then they will spread all over the world and turn away from building this city and this tower." And as God had decided, so it came to be. He confused the people's language. Nobody could understand anyone else. People ran away from the city in all directions, and they left the city and the tower unfinished behind them. The fertile plain where people had begun to build the city and the tower lay in the distant land of Shinar, which is also known as Babylonia or Mesopotamia. They named the city Babel, because God had confused their language here, and this name has remained as a reminder to people right up until today.
The story of Abraham. Far away in Mesopotamia lived a God-fearing man. His name was Abraham, and his wife was called Sarah. Just like his parents and his grandparents had been, Abraham was a shepherd. He had many servants, a great flock of sheep, a herd of goats, and many camels. Abraham was happy and contented, but one thing stopped him from being completely happy. He didn't have any children, and because Abraham and Sarah were already very old, they thought it was too late to have any. God was pleased that Abraham was a good and just man, so God spoke to Abraham, and he said to him, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will bless you, and your name will become known everywhere." So Abraham put his trust in God, and he started on his journey with his wife Sarah, and all his servants and maids, and the shepherds and the herds. It took a very long time before they finally arrived in the land of Canaan. To thank the Lord for their safe journey, Abraham built him an altar. Then one day Abraham heard God's voice again, and God said to him, "Look around you, Abraham. This whole country, as far as you can see, will belong to you and your offspring. Don't be afraid. I will protect you and make you rich." But Abraham became sad and said to God, "I already am rich, and you've helped me so often, but you've never given me any children, and when I die, my servants will inherit everything." But God answered him, "No, it will not be like that. You will have a son of your own, and he will inherit from you. Look at the night sky. Can you count all the stars? Your offspring will be as numerous as the stars in heaven." Abraham believed and trusted in God, and God was pleased with Abraham. Some time had passed since God had spoken to Abraham, and Abraham was sitting in front of his tent in the midday heat. As he looked up, he saw 3 men approaching, and he got up and ran towards them. He bowed down and said to them, "Be my guests. Rest in the shade of the tree. I will fetch you water so you can wash your feet, and then we will eat together." During the meal, one of the strangers said, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" "She's in the tent," answered Abraham. The stranger looked at him and said, "In a year I will come back here, and then Sarah will have a child." But Sarah was listening through the wall of the tent and heard what the stranger was saying. She laughed quietly to herself and thought, "I'm already old, and my husband is old too. How should I have a child?" Then the stranger outside the tent asked, "Why is Sarah laughing? Doesn't she believe me? Nothing is impossible for God." Sarah became afraid then, because the stranger knew she had been laughing. She came out of the tent and said, "I wasn't laughing." "Oh, yes, you were laughing," answered the stranger. The stranger was none other than God himself, and just as he had promised, Sarah became pregnant and brought a healthy baby boy into the world. Sarah and Abraham were very happy. At last they had a child. Abraham called his son Isaac, and Sarah was full of happiness once again. Some years passed. Isaac had grown up, and Abraham loved him very much, and God was pleased. Once again, God wanted to put Abraham's faith to the test, so God called to Abraham. "Here I am," answered Abraham. And God said to him, "Take your son Isaac, whom you love so much, leave with him, and take him to a mountain which I will show you, where you must burn him as a sacrifice." This made Abraham very